What's up, Diablo 4 Druids? So, we are getting some massive updates to Pulverize. Crazy buffs across the board. I mean, there are so many buffs with it. And the thing that I'm actually most excited about is specifically that base of 76%. If you looked at the patch notes that are coming out for Tuesday, well, there's really not that many skills that got a 76% increase. Some builds, maybe like a 3%, a 5%, even a 25% to rabies was like a relatively high number. But Pulverize, 76 is absolutely crazy. And I was really excited with this because I kind of like Pulverize already. So I created a build pre-buffs, and what's really cool is you can actually stay in ultimate form 100% of the time. You can have infinite dire grizzly rage the whole time you're playing the game, which is going to scale your damage up and survivability up, and it gives you a good amount of unstoppable. So it's going to be super beginner friendly. And what's cool with the infinite ultimate, it doesn't require you to get like absolutely crazy cooldown reduction or anything. All it requires you to do is temper on your weapon to get Grizzly Rage duration. You don't even need to like triple masterwork at all. Ideally, if you can get this to be the highest, it'd be good because you can get even more damage, because how it works with Grizzly Rage is the longer that you are in Grizzly Rage, you get increased damage. So now that we kind of briefly explained it, I want to go over all of the updates first, and then I want to go ahead and talk about how the build actually plays and what you're going to try to get. Keep in mind, I don't have perfect masterworking. The gear is relatively trash here. It's just because I wanted to test, could I actually stay in ultimate form the whole time? And the answer is yes. You only really need to hit one masterwork, and my stuff isn't even like 12 at all here. It's very, very trash gear. So expect this build to be way, way better once, of course, the update goes through. So for starters, like I said, if you want to extend the Grizzly Rage duration, that's all you need to get for the most part. If you have Harlequin Crest, it gives you some cooldown, but it's not like you need to stack cooldown reduction. So this is just the only thing you really need here. And then Pulverize is getting a massive buff with the damage increase over here. Also with Raging Pulverize, there is another buff where it's going to give you 30x increased overpower damage. So another buff if you want to choose that. If you want to choose the damage reduction, that's still not a bad choice at all. And then on top of that, the Spirit Boons, we're getting a lot of different buffs. So Scythe Talons got doubled. I mean, they doubled the stat on the crit strike chance, which is important. Sweeping attacks, which if you want to, it's another 50% boost. And Obsidian Slam is going to be awesome because now the kills required to guarantee that overpower got changed from 20 to 10. So more consistent overpowers is great. And then on top of that, with the Paragon board, there's another buff here with some extra multipliers. And then on top of that, Provocation will also give you more overpower. So again, another buff. And if you want to get some extra damage reduction while you're fortified, and because we're in the Grizzly Rage, the dire WereBear, the whole game, you're just gonna have infinite fortification. Every second you get 8% fortification. It's basically infinite as well, because Grizzly Rage will give you that. It's one of the points that you can take. And again, the whole goal is to stay in the Grizzly Rage the whole time, and you can do it very, very easy. And then on top of that, because the base of it goes up, you actually want to get ranks to Pulverize. So you can actually get 25. It only shows 20 in the planner here because it requires you to be in WereBear and also requires fortification, which won't register. But you can get up to 25. Now, realistically, is that easy to get for everyone? No. That's like the min-maxer's dream is to hit the 25 ranks of Pulverize, and for most players to spend a decent amount of time, you can get to like 18 or 20 realistically. But again, if you really push it, yeah, 25 is the absolute god tier, and you're going to deal crazy amounts of damage with this because all of this is going to be increased by, again, 76%. There's really nothing that's getting that crazy in terms of numbers. But I know I'm sounding like this is going to be the new god build, but to keep expectations realistic, don't expect that this now is going to clear Pit 200 because of all of these buffs. It's just the highest numerical change, so a lot of people will be interested in playing it. And like I said, I was kind of curious to see if we can stay in Grizzly Rage the whole time, and you can. And it's a pretty fun build, honestly. It is a great build. But if you're looking to do the highest pit pushing builds, well, you probably should delete your druid and start making a barbarian. Not being realistic with that. The barbarian and the sorcerers are just so far ahead in terms of like what they can do in terms of pit pushing. But your average player, or even someone that wants to spend more time, unless you're going to spend 38 hours a day, you probably don't care what can clear, you know, the highest number of the pit. And this is going to be a great build for beginners too, because it literally only has one button that is not pulverized, and that is to just use our ability, the Trample, just to break CC. So it's a very, very beginner-friendly build. So if maybe your little brother or you have a girlfriend that's trying to get into the game, but you tried to get them to play the Necromancer and they were like, this is boring, because that's probably the best beginner-friendly build, is like a pet Necromancer. This build feels really good because most of the time you're just going up to it, you one or two shot things, and you move on. It's a very, very fast build. Again, remember, I've got trash gear and I'm making it look like it's just something you can face roll. You can clear out Sigil 100s once you get your master working done. Super easy with this build, and it's relatively tanky, so it's a little bit more forgiving than other builds that are a lot more squishy. So that was the whole goal with this, and it was really just to see if we can stay in Grizzly Rage the whole time. Infinite Ultimate was the goal. So for starters, as far as the skills go, now that we went over kind of the update here, we have Trample to break crowd controls. Even though we do get a huge amount of Unstoppable when we activate Grizzly Rage, it only lasts for a set duration. But basically, Trample to break CC, then Pulverize. That's it. The rest of the skills, you don't even need to activate them. If you want to, sure, you can push buttons to push buttons, but it doesn't really help out that much, with the exception of Poison Creeper activating Poison, which we have it actually set up automatically on the Paragon board. But if you want to drop it and run this and run something else, that's technically an option. But I wanted to make this like a super beginner-friendly build because staying in your ultimate form for infinite duration is awesome. Now, it technically does go down, but you're just going to reactivate it again. It'll depend on your tempers in terms of how long it lasts, but you'll see in the gameplay, I mean, we have it up the whole time. So as far as it goes in terms of the spirit boons, we just have Deer for damage reduction. Then we get the brand new buff with Sight Talons, more crit, more damage. And then Avian Wrath is great because Envenom is basically how Druid actually is even relevant in the game. So we need to take this. And then with Calamity, we get to extend the duration of our ultimates by 25%, which actually stacks with the Tempering, which is crazy. And then we have Obsidian Slam. Remember, this is getting another buff. And then in terms of the gear and aspects, we have the Harlequin Crest. If you don't have it, check the notes. I wrote down what you can get. You just get like a willpower. You can get cooldown reduction if you want, or extra life. That's all fine as well, but ideally Harlequin Crest is the best in slot. Then what you want to try to get is the Ballistic aspect. That'll give you another 2 ranks to your Earth skills, and our Pulverize will be converted to an Earth skill. And then we've got Shepherd's aspect for more damage. Then we got either Undying, or you can run the Crowded Sage. This is kind of a free slot. If you want to run Tibalt's Will, that's totally cool. It can help out against the bosses because resource on bosses, since you don't just one-shot the boss, it can be another option if you want to. And then Concussive Strikes to activate another crowd control, and you get extra damage here. And then we are running the Shockwave aspect. We want to run a 2-handed staff or an axe, but if you want to run a mace, hey, that's fine too, because you're technically either scaling damage versus healthy, or you're getting extra overpower damage, and you're going to get way more overpowers now with the buffs. But staff will give you damage to crowd controlled, which will help out in the Paragon board. And then we have the Rampaging Werebeast. So more Grizzly Rage duration, and every single time we crit, we're going to get up to a maximum of 200, because it goes up 10 each time. And this is how we're going to get way more damage. So while we're in Grizzly Rage, we get all of these multipliers. Then we get our crit strike damage to go up to 200% on top of getting that 3% for every single second. Because we're going to stay in Grizzly Rage for a really long time, well, it's just going to add up. And if you're doing open world content, I mean, you're just one-shotting everything. It's very, very consistently too. And then we have an aspect of the Earth Sign Horror to convert Pulverize into an Earth skill. So it's now an Earth, and it's considered nature magic, and has these tectonic spikes that tickle, that don't do anything though. And then we have Ring of the Starless Skies. If you don't have this, you can get a ring with resource cost reduction or any sort of resource generation, and then you can actually scale more crit damage, because this crit damage is actually pretty bad. But Ring of the Starless Skies is getting another buff, and since we're doing an updated build guide, I figure we'll go ahead and throw in the thing that's getting another buff here. But if you are having resource problems, we'll talk about a little other things that you can swap in and out. But ideally, if you can get Spirit per second in your chest as well as in your boots, that'd be ideal. If you don't have Harlequin, you can also get it in your helmet to get Spirit per second. So that'll really help out with the resources. And then we don't run an offhand because we run a 2-handed staff here. But check the notes if you don't maybe have something or you want to swap things around. I put some notes on other things that you can choose to run. But as far as like the important like rolls, there's not really anything that's like super important that's new. It's crit strike chance. You can get attack speed. You want ranks to Pulverize in your gloves. Getting willpower, armor, life. That's kind of like the normal stuff. There's not really anything again that's super specific. And then with the temper, you want that Grizzly Rage duration. Ideally, you try to temper that one on and masterwork it to hit multiple times. And then you can also get Earth critical strike chance, as you're going to be heavily investing into crit with this build, because this gives you so much crit damage. It gives you another 200% that, yeah, you definitely want to get crit strike chance. It's going to give you way more damage. And then as far as the gems go, if you want to run rubies, that's fine, but I like emeralds because it's more consistent. And then you have also rubies in your armor, and then with your gems, you can run diamond in the jewelry department, or if you need sapphires, whatever color that you need, go for it, because it's kind of random on what your character runs. But Druid has this thing on the skill tree, which now we're going to, well, it just gives you a bunch of all res, so it makes getting your resistances pretty easy with Druid. So the first 2 skill points don't matter. If you want to use this as a leveling build, basically all you do is you go to the Helltide, you keep on killing stuff, you're going to get free Iron Wolf's reputation, and you're going to convert that eventually as rewards. They'll give you a bunch of the pulverized stuff, so it'll be easy to access. But in the very beginning, if you want to run like Maul or whatever, you want to be a WereBear at the start, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. Choose whatever you want at the very beginning. If you're using it as a leveling build, literally just go to the Helltides, farm it, and it'll be good. And then next up, we obviously want Pulverize. Now this is getting a buff. It doesn't show it here on Raging Pulverize, but enemies overpowered, we're going to take... they're going to be stunned, but you also get 30x overpowered damage. So this one's going to be good once the patch hits, but for now, just run this if you are wanting to play this like today. And then obviously you want to put max out Pulverized, and you want Predatory Instinct. We don't convert at all to anything. So there's some other builds that do convert, but I wanted to make this a very beginner-friendly build, so just stay in WereBear, and you're going to be good to go, because you're going to be forced to stay in WereBear. Unless, of course, you are crawling across something or climbing upstairs. The bear can't climb stairs for some reason. It forces you to be a human. We don't need to put any points into any of the other defensive stats here. And then if you don't have Harlequin, you do need to put 1 point into Poison Creeper and Wolves, so they will be on your bar. You have to put these on your bar for Shepherd's Aspect to be active. We do put 3 points into Ravens, specifically getting into Brutal Ravens, because that's going to increase the damage on Shepherds. And again, you don't need to activate this at all. Next up, Provocation. This is also getting a buff here, and then just more damage. And then Envenom, very important. It's required in every single Druid build. And then we get all the damage to the nature magic skills because we convert it to an earth skill, which is also a nature skill, so all these buffs work. And then since we don't constantly transform, we don't need any of these, even though there are some buffs over there, but it really comes down to just the Supreme Grizzly Rage over here. So again, 100% infinite ultimate, and we stay in Grizzly Rage, so that's how our fortification, you don't need to get fortification anywhere else. It's awesome. You just are always, every second, it's 8, 8, 8, 8 as your maximum life as fortification. So again, very beginner friendly for tankiness. Now, as far as the key passes, there's actually several that you can take. So the first one is Ursine Strength, which gives you more life, more overpower damage, and more damage. Pretty straightforward. If you need more HP and survivability, you get this one. If you want the most damage, Bestial Rampage will give you X50 while being a WereBear. And then if you are having resource problems, Earth and Might can kind of help out. And that is going to restore all your spirit when you use an Earth skill, and Pulverize gets converted to an Earth skill. And on top of that, you get guaranteed crits for 5 seconds, and you can continuously just keep on keeping this up if you can. It kind of sucks versus bosses because there's not enough targets for you to get the lucky hit, but don't worry about scaling lucky hit even if you're getting it. It's kind of too hard to actually scale because it's a very low chance, so I wouldn't recommend scaling lucky hit, but this is actually a pretty cool thing because, again, guaranteeing crits. On average, most builds will get around 50-ish% crit. Unless you min-max harder, you can get to about 70-ish% on this build, so then you can drop it once your stuff is a little bit better and you're not really having resource problems. But either way, I'd probably take Ursine or Bestial. This one, while it does give you that extra spirit potentially, it does fall off once you have enough crit, I would say, because getting guaranteed crits, while that's good, well, you can also just get a Ring of Sorrow Skies eventually, and then resources don't really become too much of a problem. Alright, so now that we're done with the skill tree, let's hop into the Paragon board, and I'll make this a little bit larger because it's kind of hard to read for some of these. So starting right off on the starter board, we want Exploit. We do need some source of vulnerability in the build, so I did have a ring on the builder. I don't think I had it in the gameplay, but on the builder, definitely try to get one ring that can have like a chance to make enemies vulnerable. Like, it can help out. You can also consider running a Cursed Touch if you want to, but you just need some other source of vulnerability. Otherwise, you gotta run like something like Hurricane, which yeah, you're probably not gonna want to run. So you need to run Exploit here to apply vulnerability plus some sort of chance for vulnerability. So starter board, Exploit. And then we go to the second one, which is Ancestral Guidance, Fang and Claw. And we do want to pick up this one over here because it's going to give us a 30x damage. And then we are going to go into Earth and Devastation, Earth and Sky. Make sure you hit the X40 because remember, Pulverize is now an Earth skill and you need to get as much damage to crowd controlled up to X40 on this node. So it doesn't mean you just need 40%. We get so much in here that honestly, all you need is like one roll to have like damage to crowd controlled. Or if you have a staff, it's pretty much just done. So I made it like super beginner friendly. You'll pretty much get this with ease. You don't have to roll it on every single piece of gear to have damage to crowd control. In fact, you actually want to get crit damage. But yeah, you definitely want to get this, but there's so much damage to crowd control because we put this one that gives you bonuses. Over here, yeah, you get way more crit strike damage with your earth skills as well, which is awesome. And then we go into Constricting Tendrils, WereBear, and we get the node Constricting Tendrils. Now, technically, if you want to run another source of poison, this is optional, but I really like this for the automation, the ease of it, because if you don't poison enemies, well, the druid doesn't deal damage, because Envenom is like literally on every single druid build for that reason. And because we can't use Poison Creeper when we're in the Grizzly Dire WereBear, you need a source of poison. So this is just automatic nature magic skills. Again, Pulverize is now nature magic, so it also immobilizes them, so another crowd control source as well. So it's awesome for that. Then the next two doesn't really matter the order, because you probably won't reach the bonuses on the yellows, but the first four, they matter. So the next one is Survival Instincts, which will give you extra damage while you're in WereBear, depending on the difference in life. It's supposed to help against bosses, because that's the thing that Druid kind of sucks with, as far as like the WereBear build, because all the trash stuff you can kill instantly. And then there's also Spirit here, which is going to increase your crit strike damage, since that is something that we're going to get extra bonus multipliers on. Yeah, we want as much crit strike damage as possible, so Spirit is excellent. Now, I also mentioned before that there is another buff to Dominate. If you want to run Dominate, that's totally fine. You're going to have more overpower, so you could probably keep this up, and that could be something to consider if you actually want to, but I wanted to make it as beginner friendly as possible. So if you want to maybe drop this thing over here and you want to stay with just poison on just the Poison Creeper, that is another option, and you can get extra more damage. But to make it super easy and beginner friendly, I wanted to keep this build super simple, because again, for the min-maxers, just roll Barb, honestly. It's just the best class right now in the game, and it's been pretty much the best class since the launch of Diablo 4. But don't let that discourage you from having a lot of fun with this build. I actually loved this build a lot. It was actually one of my favorite builds that Druid has actually ever had, with the exception of Shred back when Blurred Beast was actually good, and then they decided, let's just kill this build. That was a really fun build too, but this is probably my top 2 Druid builds. Number 1 is Shred by like a long shot. It's my favorite build. And I'll also link that down below in case you guys want to try it out. It's a really fun speedrunning build, and this build is definitely going to hit way harder, obviously, once the update comes out for that 76% increase. It's awesome. But anyways, if you guys have any other questions or suggestions, let me know down below, and I'll leave the planner and the full link down below for you guys to go and check out. But thanks for in. Subscribe if you're new and you want to see the update, because I may play this build once it's got its update, when we can kind of see how high it can push. And as of right now, Pulverize Druid has technically hit over 100, so it's not like a super trash build, even as of right now, and it's going to get even better. But anyways, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.